The dawn of civilization. Primitive. Dangerous. Exciting. The handwriting is on the wall. If the human race is ever going to amount to anything, it needs
the most civilized caveman I have ever seen.
Look who's come out of his cave.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. This is James from Cave Dweller Music, and I'm here with my co-host Brendan. Today we have Garry from a number of projects, who is here to talk to us about black metal and chiptune. Thanks for coming on the show. We appreciate you taking the time.
Hey, thank you guys for having me. It's a blast to be here. A lot of music that I've made, so there's a lot of projects to cover, I suppose.
Yeah, we're going to talk about all of them. Do you want to maybe just tell everyone who isn't familiar with your work, some of the projects you're involved in and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be glad to. So I'm Garry Brents. Multi-instrumentalist, kind of audio engineer background. I'll name kind of all of my current active projects. Cara Neir has kind of been the main one for a long time now, since technically we started in the end of 2008. It's me and Chris Francis, a two-person project. And then I have Gonemage, a solo project, Homeskin, another solo project, and both of those are kind of they're rooted in black metal, but in almost completely different ways. And then I did have a solo death metal project called Sallow Moth, but I did end that project in the beginning of last year in 2022. So those are kind of my current things. I do have another project I just started called Memorrhage, and that one's sort of a throwback new metal style project with a little bit of a modern edge to it. But yeah.
Wow. So how do you find the time?
Oh man. Well, I would say it kind of lately started with working from home in the beginning of 2020, and I'll say that sometimes there have been days that are really slow, and my work computer or my workstation is in the same room as my studio gear. So nice. if I kind of find that days are moving along really, really slowly, I just kind of put on my music hat or my producer hat and get to my music computer station and then just start writing. That's kind of how it goes. It's almost like I'm working on an art project, just getting into it.
That's awesome. I can definitely relate because I work from home as well, and I have my work set up next to my personal setup. So whenever I have some spare time throughout the day, once I finish working or whatever, I just jump on and do my own stuff for this website, and it's great. I love it.
Yeah, it's kind of a hybrid time. Part of your time during the day, just whatever's. If something is going slow, just do something else. I
feel like it actually helps your productivity though, because it gives you a break from what you're doing, and then you come back refreshed.
I agree. Yeah, actually, that's a great point. That is how I feel. Because before working in the office, I just sometimes, not everyone has their own experiences, but you can kind of feel drained just being there for 8 hours or so. Right. And you're just there, but yeah.
Right. Especially if it's slow as well, because it's you're kind of just there for the sake of being there, and it's
true. That's true.
And I feel like that's a cultural shift that's happening since COVID. It's productivity. I guess how people view productivity has changed. It's not oh, you have to be there 9 hours. It's more along the lines of, well, I got my work done today.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, that's exactly how I've seen it. These past few years.
Yeah, and I feel like they've actually had they've shown that there's actually been an increase in productivity because people are working on this stuff, getting it done, then doing things that actually improve their life, coming back and doing it.
Yeah.
You can't 8 hours is a long time.
It is.
When you think about it.
You need a breakup.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway,
it's like getting up.
This is a whole other podcast topic, but
yeah.
So let's talk about some of your projects. I guess the first was Cara Neir. Do you want to start with that one?
Yes. Yeah. So we started that. Let's see. I guess it was November or December of 2008. During that time, I was actually or I guess, but shortly prior to that, I had a solo project called Pair Abstruse, and that was like in the very very beginning, it was sort of like a combination of like black metal and post rock, in a very naive way at the time, because I wasn't that good at like production and stuff like that, and like or even like songwriting. I just knew in my head, I was like, I want to combine these two. So this is like 2007-ish. So like that combination had already been kind of started with like Alsay, in their like very beginning stages. And I think that kind of inspired me. I was like, wow, that's pretty cool, like combining like the shoegaze and black metal. But I wanted to combine like post rock and black metal. So I had that project for a couple years, or I guess maybe about a year and a half. And then I kind of felt like it wasn't going where I wanted it to go. Mm-hmm. And I was sort of losing motivation to do like vocals and lyrics. So I talked to my friend Chris, and I was like, hey, do you want to start up like a new project? And that's when we started Cara Neir, and I had already had one song like written and recorded, but it didn't have vocals. And I just sent him the song. He's like, wow, this is pretty cool. And he immediately, started writing lyrics, and we were just kind of working off of each other's energy for the project. And we've been doing it ever since then. I think we have 8 albums now, and a numerous amount of splits and EPs and stuff like that over those years. And obviously we've changed styles quite a bit from the beginning, and we sort of kind of started the project with that in mind, not necessarily knowing all the genres and styles that we would shift through, but that we would keep that idea open-ended, where like we were not going to confine ourselves to like just black metal or just one certain genre.
And what was sort of the inspiration behind shifting to the chiptune direction?
Yeah, no, great question. It all kind of started during like the summer of 2020. People are more at home, and like I said, I was starting to work from home, and I was just like absorbing a lot of or reabsorbing a lot of stuff that I loved in the 90s, like RPGs and like the art style, pixel art style, on social media and art websites. So kind of the root of it is just like my love for the nostalgia growing up in the 90s. I was born in the late 80s, so I was, basically a 90s kid. And so was Chris. So I kind of approached him with the idea of like, man, what if we completely like just went off the rails into a pretty different direction, but still sort of combining that with some of our older sound. And he was on board. He thought it was a wild idea, but we went full force with it, obviously on our record called Phase Out. So yeah, essentially a love for nostalgia fueled that change.
That's awesome.
Nice.
And on that note, what is your favorite 90s video game?
Oh, okay. So I would have to say, and actually it's my favorite game of all time. Okay. Star Ocean, The Second Story, which was on first PlayStation. Mm-hmm. And that one's really good. It's a crazy RPG that has 80 different endings. I've only beaten it twice, so I will probably never be able to like reach the amount of endings it has, but it's an insanely replayable RPG for those listeners like who have never heard of it or maybe have heard of it and never tried it. But yeah, it's great. Star Ocean, The Second Story.
Awesome. I'll have to check it out. I never played that one.
Yeah. Oh, it's super fun.
Yeah. Then, have you been playing any newer video games?
Let's see. I have, but it's kind of been a while. I definitely did like kind of last summer. There was this new game on that I bought on Steam, and I had been following it, or like the art style or the couple of artists who worked for the game about a year before it was released, and it's called Norco. It was probably my favorite game that I played last year, and it's also done in a pixel art style. It's very like a kind of a noir, a sort of gothic feel, but in modern times, set in Louisiana. And it's like a point and click style game, very narrative driven, a lot of mystery.
Right on.
And I just have to say that my favorite Cara Neir album of all time is Portals to a Better Dead World.
Oh, nice. Okay. I
absolutely love that one.
Thank you. Yeah, I think over the years that's definitely been maybe the most well-known one and probably a lot of people's favorite. That's definitely, I think it's my personal favorite too. Like just kind of is if I were looking from the outside in. It's a fun one
for sure. And then like my favorite song that you've done through that project is actually on that album as well, which is Red Moon Foreboding.
Okay, yeah, that's oh man, it kind of gives me like a flood of memories writing that song. Yeah, that's a really cool song.
There's just that one it's like that one verse towards the end.
Yeah,
that it's like that's stuck in my head all the time. I listen to that all the time.
Oh yeah, where the sort of slows down a little bit.
Yeah, and the part where and like the lines like fold like a deck of cards, subservient man abhorred.
Yes, yeah.
Love it.
Man, that's funny. That's probably one of my favorite moments in the entire discography.
Awesome.
And there's a lot of stuff, obviously a lot of music in the discography, and that's definitely one of my favorite moments. I remember when Chris sent me, because like the way we work is I write all the music, or about 95% of the music, like written and recorded. I send him the songs, then he sends me a draft of lyrics with timestamps, like exactly where he intends to record the vocals. So I read them as I'm listening to the song, but before the vocals are recorded. And when it got to that part, or when I was reading it, I was like, whoa, this is really cool. I like hope that it will turn out like as cool as I'm thinking in my head. And it definitely did. He did an excellent job there.
That's an interesting recording technique. I like that.
Yeah.
And then I guess the next project after that would be Gonemage.
Yeah. I guess technically I did do Sallow Moth in 2016, but I did end that in early 2022 so that I could focus on Gonemage.
We can talk Sallow Moth first. Tell us a little bit about Sallow Moth.
Sure, yeah. So I kind of started that project on a whim, based on what do you call it? A guitar pedal that I got that's essentially one of those HM2 style clones. And that was in the summer 2016. And I got it really just to like jam on it. I didn't intend to make a project out of it, but I just like recorded a demo and I was like, well, this is pretty cool. And I had kind of always wanted to do like something death metal in that vein, using that kind of tone. And so I just started the Sallow Moth project, and over time, like basically after the first EP, like everything after that followed like a lore that I created, heavily influenced by the card game Magic the Gathering. Essentially like my own fan fiction of Magic. So like all the song titles and like the lore is very inspired by Magic, just kind of in its own I guess you could say alternate universe.
That's sweet. That's cool.
And you had some interesting guests on that last album you did, right?
Yes, yeah. Or on the last Sallow Moth album.
Yeah, the Stasis Cocoon one.
Yeah. My friend John Rosenthal, he was able to throw down some guests. I in the credits, almost I think everything he's been a part of as a guest, he does like shrieking vocals. So he's been in some Cara stuff a little bit over the years. So he does like all the like backing shriek type vocals on Stasis Cocoon.
He's from
like, one of my.
Oh, sorry, didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, you're good.
He's from Stellar Descent, right?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah. He's also a very busy, like multi-instrumentalist, busy musician kind of guy too.
Yeah, I only know that project of his, so I'm gonna have to look up the other ones. From what I can see, he's in quite a few.
Yeah. I know that I won't divulge, but he does have some secret projects.
Okay.
He sends me advanced material at like I guess like like download links of them, and but I won't divulge that of what the projects he's in, but I will say that he has more projects than are listed on, say, like that you can see on like Metal Archives.
Oh, okay, interesting.
So he is a very busy guy. Yeah.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
So you said so you ended Sallow Moth basically to pursue more of a focus on Gonemage and Homeskin, right?
Yeah, definitely. That's correct.
What was sort of the motivation behind ending Sallow Moth and shifting onto those projects? So is that sort of what you've been enjoying working on more lately?
I think so. Yeah. And especially during that time frame, I was kind of I don't know if burnt out was the right word. Maybe it is. I felt like I couldn't I didn't want to force myself to continue writing death metal if it was going to force me to, to put out something. So I was like, I think that I hit a really good high point for the Sallow Moth project, musically and lyrically, thematically. So it does kind of end on a cliffhanger story wise, but I kind of left it open to interpretation.
Okay, Brendan, I know that you have a lot of very strong feelings about Gonemage. So,
oh man,
did you have some questions you wanted to ask?
Well, I guess like man, your character. How did you come up with your character? Like, where did that start off?
Okay. Oh man, that's a really good question. So, essentially, the character kind of it's like a completely alternate persona slash timeline character of my fictional character in the Cara Neir phase out lore. And I'll kind of extrapolate on that album, like that character, and that is more like I guess I would say like a video game magical version of me, like realistically. But then in Gonemage, it's like kicking that up a notch, several notches, where it's like a completely almost like ephemeral version of me that like will never exist. Like it's like completely stuck in this video game realm, and that's I essentially just wanted to make the character totally like, I guess, inhuman, or like completely stuck inside, trapped in a video game. So yeah, that's kind of the root of it. Yeah.
And then like, so where did you I guess the paintbrush, right, that they use, like is using, like that, or where did that come from,
that idea? Man, I think that also kind of is influenced by Magic the Gathering. Just like some unwieldy like super powerful tool or equipment that's like has these mysterious magical properties. I guess really any kind of fantasy type setting or game or movie or book has something like that, or I guess in the most popular things like Marvel, like the Infinity Gauntlet, or something like that. Just this like tool or device that's super powerful. But I think really, it was inspired by like Magic, just like stuff that has like swords and equipment in that game that are like legendary or like yield like really crazy powerful abilities.
Right. So with your paintbrush, you're just like able to do all that. Like it's pretty sweet. It's a really cool concept. I really like that a lot.
Thanks. Yeah, and I guess like why the paintbrush? I'm not sure. I think because I didn't want to do a sword, because that's been done like so much, and I didn't want to do like an obvious weapon like an axe or sword or a staff. So I was like, what would be cool. Like I think a paintbrush would be cool because it's also, you know, something that can create, like, you know, in the real world sense. So like in the magical sense, it'll create like, you know, beings and dreams and stuff like that.
Right. And then like, yeah, this guy's like just chasing them, trying to keep them alive, and like it's really cool, man. It's just sweet. It's definitely
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm definitely excited to hear more of that story. Keep it going, you know.
Yeah, it will go into some wild trajectories for sure in the next couple of years. I would say I have some of it or a lot of it planned out already.
Nice. That's awesome. That's really good to hear.
Yeah, thanks.
And where do you like, you have so many like, you know, guest vocalists and whatnot. Where are you finding all these people? Like they're just like they're brilliant sounding.
Yeah, no, huge kudos to like all the guests I've been able to work with and you know, find the time to collaborate with. I would say a large portion of them pretty much just from like social media over the past couple of years. Like some of them are friends that I've known for several years, but then a lot of the time it's just people that I come across, like new musicians that I'm like, oh man, they have some really cool stuff going on. Let me ask them if they want to collaborate. And a lot of the time they're like, yeah, I'd be down. Or, you know, sometimes people are like, I don't know if I'd have the time. But most of the time people are pretty open to collaboration. So yeah, it's just a lot of peers in the music scene.
It's definitely sweet. Yeah, when I was listening to them all last night, and I was playing this it's like a dungeon crawler kind of game, and
nice.
Vampire Survivors. It's pretty fun, and you literally.
Oh man, I did try that a couple months ago. Yeah,
you just like literally outmaneuver all these things, and then eventually get like stuff set, like, you know, automatically just keep going at it, you know. So but I was like, this is like the perfect soundtrack for this game right now. It's like it's perfect, you know. It's like getting intense in moments, and I'm just like, yes, let's go, you know? It's all like nice and calm, and I'm like all concentrated, but it's like it's perfect. Yeah, man. Oh, it's so much fun.
That's awesome to hear. Man, I'm glad you brought that up because one of my friends did recommend me that game. That I was trying to think of another game that I played like semi recently, and that was one of them. And he was like, man, you're gonna love this game. It has cool like kind of, you know, retro pixel art style, and it's like a very dungeon crawler type of game. And I was like, okay, I'll give it a shot. And you know, I loved it. It's super fun.
Yeah, it plays so smooth. Like it's like a game that like we wanted to have like when we were younger, you know, but it was like, why couldn't they do that? But now it's here. It's awesome.
Now it's here. Yeah. I feel like it was one of the most popular games of last year.
Yeah. No, it's definitely good. That and Dead Cells was a really good one too. If you haven't played
Dead Cells is awesome. Yeah, I haven't played it in a little bit, but I do have that. I have Vampire Survivors on Steam, but I have Dead Cells on Switch, and I just haven't played my Switch as much lately. But that game is awesome.
Yeah, it's so much fun. But I mean, you made a perfect soundtrack for him, and then
oh, thanks.
Are you gonna get into making like straight up like video game soundtracks?
I would love to. That's kind of been like part of a dream of mine to do. Essentially, just making like a soundtrack or multiple soundtracks for games, especially of that style, any kind of dungeon crawler, side scroller type game. I guess like oh yeah. I guess like I don't really know how to get into that side of the industry. I guess it's kind of all about like contacts and stuff. So I don't really like know people who like do. I know actually one guy who does music for a game, but I don't know like who to get in touch to. You know.
That's awesome. Yeah, we gotta figure that out for you because
it would be a blast.
Really good at it.
Thanks. Yeah.
I feel like you're well positioned to break into that market.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, listen, I just had the sound effects playing on the games last night and listening to your music, and I was just like, fucking right, dude, this is great. You know?
Yeah, I try to kind of inject like, yeah, so sometimes it's not all necessarily, you know, like musical tones, but also, yeah, like you said, like sound effects of that era or of that you know, video game realm into it.
Yeah, like Master of Disgust. And I was like listening to that, and I'm just like, where is all this? This is great. It's like all the Waluigi shit coming out at me, and I'm just like, this is awesome. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah. That's kind of, yeah, I mean, basically just like the little kid in me, just like, I want to put something pretty goofy that, you know, I liked as a kid. I mean, still like into the music.
Yeah. Oh man, it's so much fun. Definitely fun. Yeah, you have like, I don't know. I've heard. It's like, you know, I haven't really heard much of anyone else doing anything like this, really. You know what I mean? Like, it's really cool.
Okay. Yeah. Man, I would love to see more people approach or have that approach.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely like fun. Dungeon synth and stuff like that, but like, I feel like what you've done is like, I don't know, you shook it all up and like, yeah, it's cool, man.
Are you familiar with an artist called Xexis?
Yes.
XEXYZ.
Yes. I like from kind of the MySpace era.
Yeah. So I ended up, I do PR on the side as well. Like I'll put albums out and stuff. And I did PR for his latest album. He actually put one out end of last year called Gamera. And it's a concept album about Gamera. And it's, same thing. But his is a slightly different approach to yours, though, because he took symphonic black metal and then replaced the synths in symphonic black metal with chiptune, and it's all through an NES system, so all the sound effects are NES.
That is awesome.
Which is awesome. And then he like threw in a bunch of like second wave black metal stuff, so it's got like the speed metal influences, and then it's all Gamera themed. That's
great. I've been meaning to kind of get in touch with him because I actually think he is the first artist to combine like the chiptune with black metal, like the sound of chiptune with the instrumentation of black metal, like, you know, with actual guitars and drums and all that. So I think he is like actually the creator of like black metal chiptune. I think
he is, because he did we mentioned that in the press kit that he was the first person, at least that any of us are aware of.
That is publicly known. Yeah. Man, that is cool. I got to check out Gamera because
I'll send you the link after this.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great.
It's a really fun album.
Yeah.
And then I guess like, so that's the Gonemage side of things, and then you said the opposite, the anti Gonemage, like the dark shadowy version of it is Homeskin. Which is like a completely different direction.
Very much so. Yeah.
So what's like, tell us a little bit about Homeskin. What inspired that side of your musical repertoire?
Yeah. I guess kind of throughout let's see. So I started that kind of spontaneously in November of 2021 with its like the first EP. Which I recorded in like 13 hours. It was obviously one of those incredibly slow days at work, and I just picked up my guitar and I was just like playing some black metal riffs, and I was like, this just doesn't fit Gonemage. Surprisingly, like, you know, I was gonna, you know, continue to write more Gonemage, and during that time I was. But it was very different from like what I was just kind of jamming on my guitar. And I was like, I don't think this is going to be Gonemage. It's going to be something totally different. And I kind of leaned into that feeling. And I was like, okay, I think this is going to be like a totally new project where it's, essentially the antithesis of Gonemage, much darker, almost like droll even at times, and much more dissonant of a foundation rather than melodic and boisterous. So that was kind of just the birth of it. It was a spontaneous decision that kind of led into formulating Homeskin as I went on, essentially like right after that first EP.
That's awesome. And then like I remember the first album that I heard from the project was integument crystallization, which I know you recorded.
Okay.
You wrote, recorded, and produced the whole thing in like 11 hours.
Yes. Yeah. That was a crazy time. So that whole album was kind of what led up to it was we had a pipe burst in my house in my bathroom, and I don't know, for some reason it just like made me want to write music because I couldn't do anything about the pipe burst until people could come and check it out. So I just wrote that album, and it's all inspired by that feeling of just having like something crazy go wrong in your house.
Interesting. So it's a much more sort of relatable concept. It's less like fantasy and more everyday life experiences than Gonemage.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, that's a great description of the project. Essentially a much more like down to earth, not fantastical, not magical, just sort of like just kind of daily ongoings of life, whether it's big or small.
Interesting. So the two kind of balance each other out in that aspect.
It's
definitely.
Worry and like all that kind of like helplessness, and then like shit, I gotta wait on other people to do stuff. Like,
yep.
Yeah,
just that feeling of like kind of
dread.
Almost dread. Yeah, dread, a little bit of helplessness. And not in like an extremely dramatic way, just these are things that happen in a house.
Out of your control.
Yep.
I feel like that frustration though really came through in your vocals on that album. They were like some of the rawest I heard you do on any of your projects.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Man, whenever I go back to that album, and I haven't gone back to it that often, but whenever I do, I kind of am surprised like what I actually recorded on there, because that whole project is all like I said, done in very, very short amount of time. So it's like almost once it's done, I kind of don't remember what happened. Like they're just like these anecdotes of my life on each release.
But I feel like that's kind of what gave it so much power behind it, because it was really like it sounds weird to say this, but it was very honest. Because it wasn't it wasn't premeditated, it wasn't planned out, like it just was like exactly how you were feeling at that point in time.
Right. And that's a great kind of view of the project, because that's how I've always seen it. It's sort of like I guess like a musical diary. It's just like, well, this is what happened. I'm writing this about that and my thoughts and feelings about it, and then I turn the page.
That's awesome. I like that. And then we have one final project to cover, which was your upcoming Numenor one. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what to expect from that one?
Sure. Yeah. So that one is called Memorrhage. Essentially the word hemorrhage, but instead of the H, just an M. Sort of, I guess people will kind of pick up on that. I love kind of fusing two words or two words together. Gonemage, Homeskin, and this one sort of. And this was also kind of another spontaneous decision that I started in November 2022 with just one song, and it almost is like kind of taking the place of Homeskin in a way, in a creative way, to where like I picked up my guitar and I was just like recording stuff, and I was like, this does not fit any of my projects whatsoever. So I was kind of already in my head like, you know what, I'm gonna have to lean into this idea as a new project, especially since I knew that I was already going to end Homeskin on kind of what do you call it, a predetermined set amount of releases. So Memorrhage is kind of just leaning fully into like late 90s, early 2000s style new metal, and even like hardcore of like the late 90s of that time, just sort of a fusion of that like aggro vibe with a little bit of a like modern approach to it. And so far I just have one single called Memory Leak, and I've got a full length in the works, coming hopefully this summer, on Big Money Cyber Grind. And I don't have a exact date yet, but yeah, planning for a summertime release.
And that single, where can we listen to that one? Is that on Bandcamp or is it?
Oh yeah. So I've got that. Yeah. memorrhage.bandcamp.com, and that single should pop up. Should be the only thing that's visible there.
That's called. You said Memory Leak, right?
Yes, Memory
Cool.
Leak.
I just found it, I think, because I actually haven't heard this. I didn't realize you put this out, so I'm going to definitely check this out after this episode.
Yeah, cool. Yeah,
got you there.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like excited to hear it because I sometimes have like some throwback nostalgia to 90s new metal. I mean, personally, I say this on this podcast like almost every episode. I don't know why, it just always comes up. Is that I know it does. I love Korn. Like I absolutely
me too.
love Korn. Like especially the first like 4 or 5 out. Everything up to Issues. Like Issues is my
absolutely
like unpopular opinion, but Issues is my favorite Korn album.
They usually just get stuck in the teeth.
And then Brendan makes that joke every time. So
I respect that. It's funny that you say that. I guess so. I'll kind of extrapolate on why I was jamming new metal riffs on my guitar in November. So kind of what led up to it was late last summer. That Woodstock 99 documentary that came out.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
that's crazy.
I watched that,
trash people,
and it was insane. And I was just like, I mean, I was 12 when Woodstock 99 happened, so I couldn't have even gone to it. But I wanted to, or like as a kid in my head, I was like, oh, I'd love to see Korn and bunch of the bands. Mm-hmm. So watching that documentary, I was like, wow, this is like, I wish I could have gone, but it's funny to like just see this, and it sort of kickstarted like me revisiting Korn and listening to their whole discography in like a couple days. And I felt the same as you, where like, I really love Up to Issues, and I still like some moments on Untouchables.
Me too.
Going back to it. It was kind of a grower, like revisiting it. But I absolutely love the first 4 albums. So that sort of planted seed in the back of my mind, kind of led me to this Memorrhage project.
But for me as well, like with them, like It Goes Up to Issues is their best work, and then I thought their comeback album was that Untitled one that they did with like the black and white weird art.
Yeah, I did like that one. Yeah, I thought it was pretty good. Yeah.
It was very different. Like it's a very like
it was.
It was like a softer direction for them, I guess. But like the thing I appreciate about Korn is that they've always done their own thing. They've never
that's true.
Felt constrained or like boxed in, and they don't really care what people think. Like you can say what you want about them, but they've artistically done whatever they want to with every album.
And that's amazing. Like you can't say that about a lot of like bands, especially of their notoriety. Like, I mean, they're huge, they're the biggest new metal band ever.
And back to the topic we were discussing, which is the Woodstock. Do you think that Fred Durst or Red Hot Chili Peppers were the real villains of those events that went down?
Ooh, that's funny. You know what? I actually am gonna say Red Hot Chili Peppers were the villains.
I think so too. I think they caused it.
I think so too. Yeah. I mean, no,
they didn't cause it, but they were the catalyst.
Yeah, the catalyst. And you could say that like Limp Bizkit possibly added a little bit to the fire, but I agree. Yeah, I think the Chili Peppers were the catalyst of it.
Because the cause was like shitty corporate greed that caused them to make a ton of terrible decisions that ultimately like hurt a lot of people.
Completely.
And like the whole thing with saying that there was like a secret act and then not having one was just insane. Like I don't know what they thought was going to happen.
Ooh, yeah. I mean, that would cause any kind of outrage, like no matter what kind of festival what it is.
Right. But especially like it's like a match into a powder keg with all the days of heat and like terrible facilities, price gouging. And like the most shocking part of that was at the end when they were talking about how many people were sexually assaulted. And
Oh my gosh, yeah.
that dude was like, "Oh, it's not really that many when you see how many people attended." I'm like, "What?"
Right? Yeah, like that statistically, that is not a lot of rape. You're like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
right. Like, how can
it's
you
like,
quantify that like that? Yeah,
it's like if people had, it's like people had
no.
died. It's like, well, only 3 people died. I'm like, it's like,
someone still, people still died.
It's like, shut up, stop talking.
It's
Right.
okay though, because he was dead shortly after that. So it's the universe.
Yeah.
Brendan, I know you always have a bunch of topics that you love to cover, so I'll hand it over to you for your special questions.
Yeah. Well, have you played any live shows?
I have, but not with any of my current projects. Let's see, I'm trying to think. First band that I was playing live shows with, what was kind of a sort of short-lived project I was in called They Mostly Come Out at Night. Definitely a reference to Aliens.
Yeah.
And that was like a kind of post-rock, post-metal sludge outfit. I think it started in 2008, if I remember correctly, and we were only around 1 year. At that time, we played, I think it was 3 shows. One of those shows we opened for Minx, and then we kind of got our separate ways, and then we reformed in 2016 briefly. For like a year and a half ish, and we put out an EP and full length, and we did play a couple shows during that iteration of the band as well, and then we called it quits. Who knows, we could reform a third time. Possibility is always there. And then I did also play bass. I played bass in that band, and then I played bass for briefly for about a year and a half for the band Wild Speaker, and that was in 2016 to 2017.
Nice. What were your favorite places to go see live music as a fan?
Oh, great question. I would say there's this venue in this town called Denton, kind of a college town, very like DIY ethos. A lot of, well, I don't know about now, but a lot of people kind of considered it sort of like the Austin of North Central Texas, but not as snobby. It's just like really cool, a lot of creative musicians there, and a lot of cool shows come through there, and the venues there are always really cool, that I've been to, especially this one called Rubber Gloves. Not a super huge venue, but it's a great one. So that's probably my favorite place that I've gone to for shows. And then like maybe like a bigger venue that I've always loved is called Granada Theater, and that's like in the center of Dallas, and that one's like kind of a more for bigger shows.
Nice. Any did you get to see anything cool last year?
Yeah. Let's see. Actually, at Granada Theater, I got to see Street Sex opening for Perturbator and Health. That was actually the only show I got to see. No, actually, I'm lying. I did also get to see MS Paint last year. I think it was in November, if I remember right. They're really cool, like a synth punk kind of band.
Oh yeah, nice. Have you been to? I was looking up places in Dallas, and then the Bishop Cider.
Oh yeah.
It sounds pretty cool. At least I don't know if it's really cool or not, but it's got like 120 games and like a shit ton of beers on tap.
Yes, that place. I haven't been in there yet, but I know someone who used to work there. I've been meaning to check it out because it does sound pretty cool, and I've heard tons of great things about it.
Yeah,
kind of on my list for things to check out for sure. It's only about a half hour away from me.
Nice. Yeah, no, that's great. And then obviously, Texas is the barbecue central.
Right.
Are you a barbecue fan, or like where are we going to eat?
Oh man, great question. So let's see. So yes, I do love barbecue. There is a caveat. I am vegan, but there is some really good like vegan barbecue stuff that a couple places here make. There's this
Yeah.
one place called El Pelote Panaderia, and they're like, man, it's crazy. They're authentic Mexican food, but it's all vegan. But they have
Ooh.
this insane. They have a few really good menu items, but this one that's like a barbecue sandwich, and it's so simple. Like it's I don't remember exactly what they use for like the meat replacement. It might be soy. I'm pretty sure it is, but they like cook it for like 24 hours and like marinated, and it's like completely submerged in barbecue. And the sandwiches like a bunch of layers of that, some pickles, and then like a toasted bun. And it's so simple but so good and saucy.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
sounds good. Nice. And then as far as you worked with like 1,000 and under million people,
Yeah.
have you worked with anyone like who would you want to work with that you haven't worked with yet?
Oh, let's see. I would have to say, well, okay, so I did reach out to him, Christopher Rigg of Ulver, who are my favorite band. I would love to work with him in any kind of capacity, like if he were able to do like guest vocals for like Gonemage or anything of mine. Yeah, he'd probably be at the top of my list. Trying to think who else. Kind of a pie in the sky, but like Tonji Warrior would be amazing as well.
Yes.
Just yeah, I mean, who wouldn't want to work with him? I think that'd be just like one of the most fun things to do. And then also kind of on the flip side, maybe like Kurt Ballou, like Converge, like he's kind of been an idol of mine in terms of like, I mean, not just like guitarist and songwriter, but also audio engineer. Like I religiously listened to a lot of his like things he's produced and engineered over, however long he's been doing it, decades plus. But I think it'd be really cool to collaborate with him in any capacity. Yeah, so I guess like those are kind of like my top three with that I can think of. Yeah.
Hell yeah. Nice. Yeah, I don't know. James, you don't have anything?
Yeah, I got a couple. I have a few on desk.
Yeah.
Saving them till the end.
Nice.
So what are some local bands from your area that people should be aware of?
Oh, yeah. Okay, great question. So I'll kind of bring them up again. Wild Speaker. Even though I'm not in the band anymore, but I was, for about a year and a half. I heavily recommend them. Really cool, like kind of blackened crust, hardcore outfit. Little bit of grind thrown into the mix a little bit.
Nice.
That was Loudspeaker, you said?
Wild Speaker.
Oh, Wild.
All one word. Actually, it's funny. They got their name from a Magic the Gathering character. So yeah, Wild Speaker's awesome. Another band, although actually I think they did call it quits, unfortunately, but they're called Mouth Breather. I think the way they spelled it though was like Mouth X Breather. At least the last time that I saw them like kind of making shirts and stuff. But they were really cool, like grindy power violence type band. And I recorded their last I guess it is their last piece of music. So like those two, and then there's a sweet like kind of grindy band as well called Imperial Slaughter. They're awesome. Kind of leaning sort of into the death metal, death grind sort of hybrid. And then similarly, this band called Cognizant, and they're insanely good, insanely tight musicians, probably some of the best I've ever seen. They have Brian Fajardo on drums from Gridlink and Noisier. He's probably my favorite drummer ever, and his work in Cognizant should not be overlooked. Really good, kind of grindy, technical grind sort of death metal band.
Awesome. I'm looking all these up as you say them because I'm going to listen to them later. So, um,
Nice. Okay. Yeah.
okay. And then I guess the question I have is like, who would you say are sort of your biggest musical influences?
Oh, okay. I'll kind of repeat that. Ulver is maybe my biggest musical influence
Hmm.
throughout all of their changes. I guess you can say they're the biggest influence and perhaps the biggest impression on me because I think they've been my favorite band for almost 20 years now, and it's sort of their metamorphosis of styles heavily influenced me as like a teenager going into my 20s and
Hmm.
my 30s, where I loved that approach of changing up styles. So they're I would say they're at the top.
Okay.
Other influences, I would say the band the Appleseed Cast. They kind of influenced me with like sort of my indie and like kind of post rock and like clean guitar side of how I write music whenever that kind of style pops up. Um, and then like, let's see who else who I'd name as like huge influences. Godflesh. Godflesh is a big one. Anything Justin Broderick, but especially Godflesh. Um, and then trying to think of kind of like a four, so I can have like a big four of influences. Maybe let's see. So, okay, so this band only had like two releases, but they're extremely influential on me. Gregor Samsa. Um, they were like a kind of slowcore post rock band, but they had, like a really good use of vocals. And then normally post rock is mostly instrumental, but
Hmm.
they just like really implemented vocals in a very impactful way. So that kind of carried with me like for years and years. Their first album, 5512, it's like one of my favorite albums ever.
Okay.
Um, so I would say like they're a pretty big influence as well. Yeah.
Awesome. I love it. Very varied.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah.
And I have one final question. This is something I thought of last week that I wanted to start asking people every episode. But I had like
Okay.
you're the first person I'm going to ask it to.
Ooh.
Nice.
If if there was a zombie apocalypse and you were stuck with one metal band as your
Ooh.
part like survival party, who would it be?
Oh wow, that's a fun one. Hmm. Ooh, that's a good one. Let's see.
Damn, dude.
Hmm. That's got me kind of jogging through various scenarios and like what I perceive of different bands.
Yeah, it's all
Um,
based on perception, obviously, because you don't know how skilled they are in
yeah,
survival. But
right. That's
who do you
funny.
think?
Yeah, you could kind of think and guess or like assume like this is what they would do, or what would they do?
Uh,
Um, hmm. Let's see. Trying to think. Okay, it's gonna be a funny one actually. It's sort of hinged upon the vocal or the front guitarist slash front man. But we'll say Soulfly, like Max Cavalera.
okay, nice, nice.
Yeah, yeah. I'll stick with that as my pick.
I
It'll
like
be
it.
interesting. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, that kind of brings us to time. So I want to say thank you, obviously, for coming on. We really appreciate
Yeah.
you taking the time and knowing how many projects you have and how many albums you put out. We'd love to have you on again in the future to talk about some of the newer releases that you've put out.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, that would be awesome. I'm always available and more than happy to chat with you guys. It was a blast.
For sure. And where can people follow you on socials?
Okay, yeah. So I guess like we'll kind of start with Instagram. You can find me in terms like music wise. I post everything on Gonemage, all one word, Gonemage, and then same handle on Twitter as Gonemage. Actually, really, those are the two kind of socials that I use. I sometimes use Facebook, but I don't really post that much on there. So it's mainly Instagram and Twitter as Gonemage.
And Bandcamp's the best place for music listening wise.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely the best place. Yeah.
great. We always think so, but some artists prefer other places. But awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on, and everyone who's been listening, thanks for tuning in, and stay tuned next week. We'll have another guest.
Awesome.
Cheers.
Thank you for having me. Cheers.